Hi, and welcome to the Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Patrick Gomez, the editor-in-chief of the AV Club, and before we speak to our guest today, I want to let you know that the Foundation has set up a COVID relief fund in order to support thousands of union performers who are going through tough times right now. Thanks to your donations, the Foundation has given over $6.1 million in emergency aid to more than 6,600 performers and their families since March 2020. If you are a SAG-AFTRA member and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video, and we all thank you for your support. But now to the task at hand. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Cheyenne Jackson from Call Me Kat. Thanks so much for joining us, Cheyenne.
Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good. Obviously we normally are doing a series like this in person where people can come and attend and sit in the audience and ask questions. Unfortunately, for obvious reasons, that's not a possibility right now, as are a lot of things. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here virtually.
Sure.
We all are having to adjust to this kind of stuff, and I'm so glad that you're working on a project that's able to film. But what has your pandemic experience been like in terms of, I'm sure you're used to living out of a suitcase for a lot of the year and stuff like that.
It's been, it depends on which day you ask me. Like, I had a rough the last couple of days, I just kind of hit a COVID wall. I think I have 4.5-year-old twins, and my mother-in-law lives with my husband and I, and we've just been in really strict lockdown since February. So it's been great and hard and wonderful and terrible and all of the above. So I'm so happy that I've been able to have a job where I can get out of the house for a little bit and, provide for my family and still create. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster, having 4-year-olds and trying to explain to them what's going on and keep them moving and grooving and occupied. It's taken everything, everything I have. So, well, that's how I'm doing.
Yes, and I think you're right. The day-to-day is certainly something we're all dealing with in terms of the roller coaster of emotions through all of this. But you are working, and you're working on Call Me Kat, which is a sitcom on Fox, headlined by Mayim Bialik, but has a fantastic cast that includes you and Leslie Jordan and Susie Kurtz and many others. Tell us a little bit about how this project came into your life. How did you first become aware of it, and what was the process like getting to actually starting to film it?
Yeah. Well, I was shooting a film last year up in the Catskills. It was about 9 degrees, and it was, I was far away from home, the longest I'd ever been away from my kids, 5 weeks. And during that time, I got I heard from my manager about this show that was coming, this pilot that was potentially going to be straight to series, and it was the new Mayim Bialik project. I'm a huge fan of hers. I've loved her forever, ever since Beaches. And I just I knew that the source material was Miranda, the BBC show, and that Jim Parsons was involved. And I just thought, this is something that I would love to be involved in. I've been trying to get on a multicam for years and years. I audition every year. I test, I get close. I've done 9 pilots. So this was something that I thought, I really, really, really want to go for this. And then I was in New York, and Mayim was here, and we did a quick Zoom read audition just to kind of see if there was something there between us, and there was. And then when I was done with the film, I came back here. Then I went through the testing process, which is just so, it's like, it never gets easier. But you just kind of, you do your best in whatever is meant to be. And there was something about this material, and also just something about the connection between Mayim and I that just worked. It clicked, and I got the part. And then Leslie Jordan came on, who I've known for 11 years, maybe. We've done a couple seasons of American Horror Story together, and he's one of my favorite humans. Susie Kurtz Kyla Pratt. I mean, it's just this wonderful cast. So yeah, then we were getting ready. Then we found out it was going to be straight to series, which was amazing. And then COVID hit, obviously. And so it was pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And then they said, we're going to go ahead and start. We're going to go ahead and try this. And we were one of the first shows to start production in the middle of this pandemic. And it was super daunting, super scary, to be honest. I hadn't left my house since end of February. I mean, like literally nothing and nobody coming in, and I just locked it down. And so the testing process started, and then just coming to work and getting the new protocol and testing and PPE. And what we really had to figure out was, we're shooting a comedy and we need to be able to see each other's faces and react and wait for timing. And, we have 2 and 3 masks on and then a shield. And it's been one of the most difficult things I've ever done, because you can't even feel the other person until right before action. Then you take it off and you have a moment. So it's been a challenge, but it's been a huge blessing to have an outlet during this time. And I've made wonderful friends, and we're really settling into the show. It's finding a great audience, and I'm 9 minutes from my house, and I've not missed one bedtime. And that's never happened. Normally I'm like 2 a.m. getting, scalped by Kathy Bates or something. So it's like, this is it's schedule wise, it's unbelievable for a dad of young kids. So
yeah. You mentioned, obviously, this series is based on Miranda, which was a BBC series from Miranda Hart. And particularly in the first episode, like a lot of it is lifted, almost directly from the first episode of that series.
Yep.
How much research did you do by watching that series, and how much did you want to stay away from it to make sure you were making your own, or do you incorporate that? Like, what was your process there?
Good questions. Well, I think it's important to know what your source material is, especially if you're that is a beloved show that people love and is wonderful. So I think I watched a lot of it, but I tried to watch it objectively and compartmentalizing, trying to not, I don't want to try to do what Tom did, who was so brilliant. And I think what Mayim described this really great the other day. I feel like we've taken the things that work for American audiences still like giving this great homage to Miranda, like the opening credit sequence, and of course, breaking the fourth wall. There are certain things that are kind of paramount to this show, but really just the sweetness and the this ragtag group of 5, 6 people who I think are very lonely. And this is just my own actory thing, but I find that each of us is looking for something in our lives, and we've found it within this little motley crew, this little family that they've created. And it's a sitcom, and it's also big and broad, and like your heart is on your sleeve. And so I've been trying to, I come from the single camera world, and I've been trying to really calibrate, like how can I really bring this material to life, but also, I always figured, I hoped, but I always figured that a multicam situation would be a good fit for me because of the stage and the presentational aspect of it all. I never thought that once I would finally get to do it, there would be no audience, right? So here we are, doing these jokes and try, right? It's all about the timing, and there's like the camera guys only laugh a couple of times, and then it's like we're just kind of like, oh. So that's been a tricky mountain to climb, but yeah. So I really wanted to honor the original, the source material, but then also just come up with my own stuff. And Darlene and the writers have really let me do that. I didn't know there was a musical aspect. I mean, I know in the other show they have the end where they have but I didn't know I was going to get to sing. Darlene, the creator, sent me a text before episode 2 and said, I have a little secret for you. I have a surprise. And I got the script and I was like, oh my God, I get to sing. I was on Glee and I didn't get to sing. I've been waiting for my singing moment. So how fun. It's so fun to be able to play somebody who is joyful and not cynical and just looks on the brighter side of life. I haven't played a lot of people like that, not for a long time. Kind of my lane these days has been, more sinister and more dry. So it's a fun sandbox to be playing in right now.
Yeah, particularly right now, I can imagine.
Yes.
Yes. They always say, the cliche is don't act with kids or animals. What made this the exception to the rule for you?
I wondered how the cats thing would be because it's a cat cafe. I've never been to a cat cafe. I like cats. I'm more of a dog person. I have 2 dogs, but I had cats growing up. So I was like, how is this going to be? Mayim is all about the cats and she knows all their names and she, some of them have special needs. And this cat, there's a certain cat that if we have to shout around, it's fine. But other cats are skittish. So I've just been kind of, taking my cue from the trainers. None of the cats are drugged or tethered. They just sit on their little things and they usually hit their mark. It's a couple of times the other day, one took a swipe at Mayim and she was very personally offended. Just pretend. Yeah, no, it's been a fun aspect. It's cool to be in the middle of a scene and then there's a cat, walking by and, you have to react.
Yeah, it certainly keeps you on your toes, I'm sure.
For sure.
You mentioned the aspect of working on a multicam being something that you thought would be similar to the stage, and the schedule was obviously appealing. But doing something like this from the ground up, you mentioned you'd attempted other opportunities in the past to do a show like this and kind of be part of a pilot process that didn't end up going. I have to imagine that aspect, because obviously auditioning for jobs and not getting them can come with their own grievances, but to see a project through a process for so long and then for no one to get to see it, I have to imagine that that's one of the more difficult aspects of having the job of an actor. For you, how do you move on past that, and how do you stay in a good mental space when you face rejection like that?
Ooh, this is the $1 million question, right? For an actor. It's something that I've gotten better at as I've gotten older. You do have to get a thick skin. You do have all of the things that they say, you just okay, you put all of your eggs in this basket, you've put your heart and soul in it. And everybody on set is saying you guys, we're totally going. We're going to just leave the costumes. It's that much of a done deal. And you're yes, finally. And then it doesn't happen. I really just have taken I used to put so much emphasis and so much value in a particular job. It meant, okay, now, when I first got to Broadway, I thought, oh my God, I'm done. I made it. This is it. And it was, and it is, but it was just the beginning of my journey. And I realized early on that I didn't want to put myself in any kind of box. And I certainly wasn't going to let anybody else put me in a box, whether that is playing a straight character, a gay character, a lord of the underworld, or whatever it happens to be. I've always known that was the thing. And so most of my mentors in the acting world are much older actors. I always gravitate to them. And when I first moved to New York, Jerry Orbach, the late, great Jerry Orbach, was my next door neighbor. And he gave me a lot of advice, and as did Tony Roberts and Xanadu. And I listened to that advice, and that is to be in it for the long haul. Learn your craft, be on time, be respectful, and just say yes. So I don't say yes to everything, but I say yes to most things, even things that I don't think I can do. I just want to try to find a way to make it work because I want to be in this business forever. And I think by diversifying myself and not only staying in one lane, it's really lent itself to, it's just started to happen that way. So nobody can really pinpoint, oh, that's what he does. Oh, wait, that's what he does. So I think that, to circle back to your original question, I think that is what has helped me not get too mired down if a part that I really wanted didn't happen, or when you're second choice for Gaston in the film Beauty and the Beast, and you have to watch Luke Evans do it, allegedly. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you have to get to a place where not so much value is put on particular projects, because that doesn't, that's just what I do. It's not who I am. I mean, is it hard sometimes? Is it heartbreaking sometimes? Yes. But the older I get, the easier it is. And now that I have kids too, the perspective is so much different. I also love that I can do things like on the Disney Channel that they can see and that they appreciate. And my kids are super into Call Me Kat. My son loves Mayim. Like, loves her. And she was so sweet. She FaceTimed him the other day and he was like, he was like exploding. And so yeah, they keep me grounded, and I just try to keep it moving.
They're at a really interesting age, I can imagine, in terms of the connection between you on camera versus you at home. Where are they right now in that process?
They're very bright. They know what's up. They know I'm an actor, so they know the word character, and they love to do scenes. I have an inkling that both of them are probably going to do something in this world, at least just to fulfill themselves, because they both can sing. I've been practicing with them since they were very little. Like in the bathtub, I'd be like, lee, 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 and they have to match. I'm like, but they love the Descendants. When I had the blue hair and I was Hades, they were very little when I did that. So that was the first time they saw me as a character, and they called me Daddy Blue Hair. And then everything from then on. Oh, then I did this thing on the Netflix called Julie and the Phantoms, which was also for younger people. They love it. The one thing my daughter said, she came up to me very serious one day and she said, because she was watching The Descendants, and I'm Dove Cameron's dad in that movie. And she said, on TV, you're other people's dad, but in real life, you're only my dad, right? And I was like, that's right. You're my only daughter forever. And she was like, okay. Like, her world was okay.
Rest assured.
And it was, rest assured. So sweet.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of it being a passion and something that you just, even if it wasn't your full career, something you wanted to do, that was a little bit your experience before you dove into acting as a full-time career, or at least I've read. Tell us a little bit about like getting first your equity card. I want to go back to the beginning, and I know you got your equity card obviously before your SAG-AFTRA card. So tell us about that process.
Yeah, I come from a teeny little town in northern Idaho. Very, very poor, like no running water, no indoor plumbing, outhouse type deal. But music and the theater was always, I just had an inkling that it was going to be my ticket out of this town full of people that I didn't relate to, that I didn't see as my people. It was a very Republican, very white, very racist town. It's about 20 miles from the Aryan Nation compound in northern Idaho. And I just knew, like, oh no, these aren't my folks. And it was the first time I got a paycheck for theater. Well, when I was 13, I'll backtrack a little. When I was 13, our French teacher took us to see Les Miserables. the touring production in Spokane. And I've never seen any, I didn't even know what Broadway was. I didn't know that that was a job. I didn't know that you could tour. It was so many things. I was just sitting in the audience and, you know, they're like, I could not even believe my eyes. And I just thought that's what I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to get there or when, but that's just kind of what I manifested for myself in that moment at 13. So I started doing plays in high school, did the whole, you know, that kind of thing. And then I heard of a summer theater, summer stock that were casting local people. And we did 7 Brides for 7 Brothers and, you know, the usual shows. I got a paycheck. And I didn't get my equity card then. I was equity eligible. It wasn't until I was, I think, 20. So I did a bunch of shows there. And then, I moved to Seattle. And then I started working at the Civic Light Opera and then at the Village Theater in Issaquah, Washington. Steve Tompkins was the artistic director and cast me in Babes in Arms. And that was when I got my equity card. And it felt so amazing. I felt like, oh, this is legit. Like, now I'm going to get insurance, and now I'm part of this club. And it was just a stamp of approval. And it made me want to get better and to honor myself and learn. I didn't go to college. So I always had a chip on my shoulder that I wasn't trained and that I didn't have, you know, the chops. That was a voice in my head for a long time because I didn't go to a conservatory. And that's what kept me from moving to New York for so long, because I thought I'm not going to go there and not be able to do a pirouette, you know, against all these guys right out of, you know, Juilliard. So I stayed in Seattle and kind of made a name for myself in Seattle, worked other jobs, worked at a magazine, you know, a bunch of other things. And then at 27, I was about to turn 27. 2 things happened, 9/11 and a death in our family. My brother's little girl died. And both of those happenings in my life just made me realize how short life is. And everybody always said, you should go to New York. You have something special. And the voice in my head was always like, you're too this, you're too tall, you're too gay, you're too whatever, all the voices that we have. But something about those 2 instances happening so close to each other, I just thought, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to do it. So I moved to New York. I knew one person, a Broadway actor named Mark Kudish, who had toured through Seattle in this local production. And I was cast as his understudy. And I called him up and he set me up with his agent in New York. And I went in, I read for them, I sang for them, they signed me. And my first audition that they sent me out on was for Thoroughly Modern Millie on Broadway. And I booked it. And it was just a sign from God, or whatever you call God, that this was the right time for me to be there. I shouldn't have gone when I was 19 or 20. But I should have been there when I was 27 because I had life experience. I had confidence. I'd kind of become the theater star of Seattle. So I knew what I was doing. I still couldn't do a pirouette, but I just believed in myself. I walked in there knowing that, oh, I'm going to get this. And I just have to convince all these people that don't know who I am and who think my name is fake. They're like, Cheyenne Jackson. I'm like, yes, it's my real. Actually, this picture behind me is Clint Walker. That's the TV show in the 1950s that my dad named me after. Everyone thinks my name's fake, but it's real. So yeah, that's how I started working on Broadway and made a wonderful life for myself, and was in New York for 13 years. And then United 93, that film was being cast, and I booked that, and that's how I got my SAG card. And that was 2006.
So, obviously the theater world and the screen acting worlds are closely intertwined, but did it feel a little like starting over when you were making that transition into doing a lot more screen work?
100%. I felt like, I keep coming back to this voice, but it's been this thing forever, this nagging thing. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to go to school. So what I learned early on in doing theater was, when I wasn't on stage, even if I was just a butt who had one line, when I wasn't on stage, I wasn't kikiing it with my friends downstairs. I was in the wings, watching the leads, watching what they do, watching their process, learning from them. Oh, I could do that. I could take from that. That may work for me. That will not work for me. All of that stuff. I just totally lost my train of thought. What was your question?
Were you doing the same thing on when you got to set?
Oh, right. So yeah, once theater, or once I started making the transition to screen, I completely felt out of my element. My first television was 30 Rock. And I took some classes prior just to see what I was going to even look like on camera. I have big features. I have a lot of exaggerated features. So I took an on-camera class, a really noted TV guy. I won't say his name, but you do a scene and you sit with all the other, and then you watch it. And I looked nuts. I was doing stuff with, because on stage, when you have to indicate something, or if you have to convey an emotion, even just as I'm sitting here you have to make sure that the people in the back understand what you're doing. It's not a close-up, but I looked bonkers, and I learned so much how to calibrate. But I had a whole lexicon of things I had to learn when I got to the 30 Rock set. I mean, luckily I was cast as somebody who didn't know what they were doing. I didn't know camera right from camera left. So there was no acting for the first 6 months. But who I learned from was Alec Baldwin, who was a master at it. And he was great and taught me, I remember I had a scene, my very first scene, I was supposed to hit a mark and say my line, and I was just off center. And he said, "You're in my light." So I learned to always hit my mark, and then just do the thing where you glance at it or feel it and know right where you are. But he taught me not to anticipate, to actually listen. You think that's a basic for people, but you'd be surprised. Even people just are thinking about their line and thinking about how they're going to say their line. And that's not what it's about. So it was a big, huge learning opportunity being on that show. So I'm super grateful for that. So yeah, I definitely felt like I had to learn, not to learn how to act again, but just learn how to calibrate it, how to bring it down, bring this part up. The camera does not lie. It can see what you think. It can see if you don't know what you're talking about. It can see when, we all watch performances and you're like, she's not really dropped in there. Oh, wow. And you can just feel when it's just flowing. And so it's a challenge. And I love it. I want to keep learning and learning and learning.
What's the calibration been like to step in? You mentioned you've been doing a lot of single camera. Talk to me a little bit about the calibration of going to multicam for Call Me Kat. And I'm sure it will be another adjustment once you are able to have that audience. Yeah.
It's interesting because, again, I look to my older actor friends, and I have Leslie Jordan and Swoosie Kurtz, 4-time Tony nominee, 2-time Tony winning Swoosie Kurtz. I have her book right over there. They're the masters at it. Also, Mayim has been doing this since she was teeny. And so I watch everybody's process. I learned, oh, that actually works great. If I have something I can't figure out, like I have no ego in terms of saying, can you help me with this? I mean, Leslie always knows if there's a rhythm of a paragraph, I'm like, I can't. He's like, now you want to say here, you want to break that up right there. And then you want to say, he just knows. And so, yeah, it's been a huge learning experience. Again, at 45, I was like, oh crap. Like, oh, there's 5 cameras and I'm a huge person. So like if I move even a little bit off here, then I'm covering somebody on this part, and I'm not used to that. I'm used to just like think, 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 think. So yeah, and then I kept getting notes to like bump it up, and I haven't got notes to like bump it up in a long time. So I'm like, no problem, you got it, because I've just been, American Horror Story. Everything is great, like so. It's been fun. It's been really fun, and finding who Max is, finding what his voice is, and what he brings to a scene, and what's my thing, and it's just all the discovery, and that's why I started acting in the first place, because it was discovering and becoming somebody else, and discovering things about yourself through the person, and I love it. I love it.
In terms of unlocking, Max, that's a term I use when I ask this kind of question a lot. Was there a particular line or costume piece or direction or interaction that you've had that you feel like was a big moment in unlocking who Max is?
It's been a process, but I would say, yeah, there was this monologue that was not in the pilot, but there was a monologue in the test that really told you everything you needed to know about this person. There's so many ways to play a scene, but Max is somebody who will just, you want to go to Europe? Let's go. Let's just travel. Let's just do it. He's not constricted by rules and schedule. And I don't like things to be, if we are running an errand and Jason, my husband, wants to go to the dry cleaners, I'm like, wait, that was not on the, okay, I have to. So I'm not as easy breezy as him. And there was a passage, a bit of dialogue where he was describing, he'd been in Europe, and he was describing a street performer, and how like all of a sudden everything just turned into this like dance. And I remember like working on the scene, and every time I would talk about we were in Prague or something, it was just this funny kind of thing. I remember my body kept kind of like just dancing as I was describing it, and I thought, oh, this is naturally happening. I have to honor that because something's happening, and it was just organic. So I've learned to pay attention to things like that. And then that's when I went into the audition. If you have one hook like that, that is, like you said, the key to unlocking somebody. And so I tried to, even like we just had a run through just now. And, you get up and you get tight, and this, there's 50 new lines, and there's all these people watching on a Zoom, and I just try to remember like, oh, okay, that's right. So for me, yeah, it was the physicality matched with what he was talking about. And yeah.
Well, I always like to conclude these interviews by asking 2 questions, one of which you actually preemptively answered earlier, which is what's the best advice you've received? And I feel like you kind of went down that road earlier, but if there's a different answer you would give, we certainly could hear that. Best advice you received, but then also what's the worst advice you received, or what's the worst advice you hear people give actors in the industry a lot that you feel like maybe gets in people's heads in the wrong way?
Right. I mean, I've had such great advice from so many wonderful mentors, but I can't remember who said it first. Somebody, I think maybe it was like Mary Testa or somebody. It's some great like body Broadway actress, but she's like, remember, at the end of the day, it's called a play, not a work. So I love the idea of play. And I love the idea of, even if it's really long hours and you're freezing cold and you're hanging upside down and you're being tortured or whatever the scene entails, it's still make believe and it's still play. And that spark of creation and that wanting to figure out a scene, I'm still ravenous for that. And so that's what I would say, that it's a play, it's not a work. The worst advice, let me think. I mean, my mind goes, I mean, I had lots of advice to not come out of the closet. You know, I had agents and people telling me, you know, just no, you want to, and it's what we kind of talked about earlier, just people want to put you in a box. And what the advice, here's what I'll say. The advice when people ask me, when young actors ask me, because I do these master classes and such sometimes, and they say like, what should I do? What's the best thing? Everybody says, be yourself, right? Like, oh, just be yourself. What does that actually mean? Be yourself. Because what ends up happening is so many times as actors, we think we're being ourselves, but we're really trying to be what we think the director and the casting agent and the producer wants for the role, right? We're like, well, and obviously you have to honor those things if you're creating a part, if he walks a certain way, if he has an accent, whatever, all that kind of stuff. But what I have found is the more you are actually yourself, I'm talking you're weird, sometimes feminine, sometimes obnoxious, sometimes whatever, all the things that we don't like about ourselves. If you embrace all of that, it only makes you more unique and more undeniable. So I tell people to lean into all of that weirdness that you have. I used to hate that my lip goes up when I talk. It's just the way my mouth moves. And I used to absolutely hate it. And then I ended up playing Elvis on Broadway, who was all about his lip. Lean into that. So that's what I would say.
I love it. Lean into it. Well, I thank you so much on behalf of the foundation. Want to thank you for sharing your process and your craft with us here today. Thank you all for watching at home. As I mentioned at the top, please make sure to make use of the resources of the COVID Relief Fund or donate if you're able to as well. And make sure to catch Call Me Kat on Fox, airing now.